Hi there, this is Jen from Wooden Blooms. Today you're going to be creating these cute bunny plaques. The large, pictured here, has 8 flowers and the small has 4. Let's get creating. And starting off, we're going to have our plaque. This is the 12-inch, the 8-inch is the same, just a little smaller. If you've got the smaller, you're going to do the same thing I'm doing, except you're just going to have a little bit of a different layout, so maybe not a full flower crown at the top. So the first thing you really want to do is take your greenery and your flowers and sort of set everything up to come up with your design. So I like to take my greenery and actually trim it. And there's a lot of different ways you can use this ruscus. So you can trim between the triads. You can make them, this one is a double one. The first one was just the single set of leaves. You can pull pieces apart as well. So this bottom one I can leave like this, but I can also just rip or cut single individual leaves off. So this is the smaller 8-inch plaque, so I'm not using as many flowers on this. And I'm kind of thinking to myself that I want to do some flowers on the bottom and I want to do some like a flower at the top to come up with. So instead of doing a full flower crown, I'm just going to do a little side flower on my bunny. So I'm taking the thinner Italian ruscus, and same thing, I'm just breaking and cutting this into little pieces. You can cut to individual leaves, and I'm kind of just coming up with a placement. I'm not gluing anything yet. I want to make sure this is what I want. So my idea is to create a little bed of the leaves, which I will eventually glue down, and then putting a flower on top of that. The roses, for example, or any of the flowers may have an extra long bottom, so you can trim those. What you don't want to trim, and it's hard to see in this video, is where the string is. So you can't trim right up against. You can see that string hanging off there. You can't trim right up against where the string is or the flower will unravel, but you can trim that little string off if it's too long. And so this is just one sample, but I'm kind of thinking like maybe want to do a different flower up there. So I'm going to try that out with one of the little mini carnations as well. It's a little bit of a bigger flower, but I love the color addition. It's super cute. So that's kind of my concept for the top, and I would start with the greenery and the flower, and then I would go back and add fillers in, which I'm not going to show you here, but the same thing. You can break apart your fillers the same way you're breaking apart your greenery. If you're thinking of doing a little field of flowers at the bottom, same thing. You can break apart this ruscus, and you can almost think of it like a stem, and the flower will come up from that ruscus as well. So you can cut and trim that and then glue and have to hold the flower down, but you can glue the flower right in to the center of that. And again, it's just playing around with design, trimming what needs to be trimmed. If it's too tall and you want to make something shorter, you can absolutely do that. And then any extra little bits and pieces you can also fill in afterwards as well. So you don't have to use everything. For me, this was looking way too tall, cutting up into the bunny. So I know that I want to cut it down a little lower. Like if I trimmed it there, it wouldn't be too tall, so I could cut that top leaf off. I could also switch it out and say maybe do greenery with flowers in between, as if it's not even growing from the stems as well, so I could keep it lower. You could do a collar on your bunny with the flowers. You could just do a cool design around the outside with the flowers. It's really open-ended, and you can do whatever you like. If you are going to watercolor your bunny, you want to make sure that you do that before anything else. So that's it. Now we're ready to glue. So here we are just adding in more greenery and fillers, trimming these with scissors, a little dab of hot glue. You can use other kinds of glue, but hot glue just works a lot faster and easier. Once you've got all your bits of greenery in and you've looked at it from different angles, then we're going to start to add the fillers. And I'm just trimming apart the faux baby's breath into single pieces so I can sneak the mini blooms in between the pieces of greenery and flowers. And these really can be added wherever you would like on the full flower crown. Then I'm also going to go in and add some of the little bitty pieces of lavender. These, I took the longer pieces and trimmed them down into 2 or 3 pieces so that I can get a little bit more out of them, and just because the longer pieces looked a little funny on the small flower crown. So using these to fill in any of your gaps. And then lastly, I'm going to go in with the Italian ruscus. This comes in little triads, but I like to break apart the pieces. I cut them down really each little sprig into 2 or 3 pieces, especially again because I don't want something too long here, and so I am using it to fill in any gaps, add more texture and depth, just like you would if you had a real flower crown that you were building for yourself. Once you're satisfied and you've got all of those pieces done, then we're ready to work on the bottom part. If you've chosen to just do a flower crown, obviously you don't have to do this bottom section, and if you've chosen to do a flower crown or just a flower piece, then you can have more flowers down here at the bottom. But I'm starting with my greenery, and as opposed to going sideways like I did on the flower crown, I'm actually going to have my greenery going up. Although I didn't do the best job of filming this section for you, you can see in the beginning photo how this kind of looks. So think about the greenery and the fillers coming up from the bottom of the plaque like it was a little field or a little garden at the bottom of your bunny. And again, once I've kind of got the pieces of greenery glued down, then I'm going to add the flowers. So I started with that center piece, and then I came to the side and went a little bit on the diagonal, and then you're going to need to hold your flowers down just a little bit here to make sure that they stay put. And this I sort of did like it was growing right up out of the greenery, and then I'm just adding my fillers in between as if they are growing up right from that little garden as well. So once you've got the flowers, just like you did with the flower crown on top, you're going to want to go in with your little itty bitty fillers. So you kind of cut apart those pieces of baby's breath, and then you're going to add that moss at the bottom. The moss is just going to cover any of the imperfections, give it that little bit of a realistic look as well. And then you can also add more of the fillers right there into the moss. And you'll just want to be careful to glue onto the pieces and then put them in, as opposed to doing big globs of hot glue onto the moss. When you're gluing your moss down, I do recommend using something else to hold the moss down besides your finger. So a toothpick or anything else you have lying around would be perfect. And then I'm just coming in with the little buds to add that final touch. So you can check it out here. Here's the finished large bunny piece, flower crown, and a little field of flowers at the bottom. Can't wait to see what yours look like.